As Shadow attempts to deal with the reality of the return of his dead wife Laura, some very extravagant enemies make their move, and the old and new gods come face to face. It's the STARZ Original series, American Gods, Season 1, Episode 5, Lemon Scented You. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of American Gods. So yes, standard spoiler warning applies. Alright, so we finally start to get some real traction moving forward. The first couple episodes sort of set up the world, and then we had a nice little retrospective last week. And I was a little concerned with there only being a handful of episodes left in this season, how much of this conflict we were really going to get to see. And tonight, I think, was the real good payoff for that. We got some backstory, we got a little dealing with the reality around, and then, of course, we got the big payoff at the end there. So let's start off looking at that opening animation, which was just so beautifully done. It was like this blend of styles of like stop action and computer graphics, and yet the figures all had this sort of sculpted and some points almost like a paper mache feel to them. I mean, it was really cool, really visually wonderful, something this show does so well. But it's basically telling the story of, again, a group coming to America, coming from the old world to the new world, a big recurring theme throughout the book and throughout this series itself. But telling the story of how those people move and integrate into the new world. And through that, about the power and what sustains the gods. What they say is the gods are powerful, but men are more powerful because it is within the hearts of men and women that the god is actually born. And you were talking about thought form, belief systems, the idea that a belief, you believe in something enough, it can become a physical reality. And that's sort of how the gods manifest themselves. And it is through that constant belief, worship, dedication, memory that the gods persist. What happens when that tribe goes from the old world to the new world, in order to survive, basically what the god says, and what happens is those people have to be integrated into the society that's already in the new world. They meet, they war, the new tribe, the tribe coming in across the Bering Strait, loses, and their children, their remnants, thus get absorbed into the tribe that is already there. Through that, they must cast aside their old beliefs, their old gods, and embrace the new gods. Leave Nyanine, the elephant god, and embrace the buffalo god, from what the tribe seems to be right there. And so as those people then get absorbed in the tribe and they forget about their old world, once they forget, once the memory of the old god is thus finished, then the god actually dies. That's why it took sort of a long time for it to fade into the forest there. It takes a while for the memory, for the beliefs, the stories to finally fade off into memory and into nothingness. And once that happens, then a god's power is done. Their power depends upon belief system. As long as people believe in them, they can persist. Jack wrote a real interesting bit last week in the commentary talking about specifically how we have Laura connected with Anubis and the old gods. Why? Because her job was working at the 24th Dynasty Egyptian casino. She was, in a sense, a priestess, accepting offerings and money for the house. And as that, even though, again, it's commercialized, it's still a tenuous memory. Their memory, the gods' memories, exists, and therefore when she passed, that was why Anubis came to speak with her and deal with her in her passing. So as long as any idea of these gods persist, they can themselves. But the more attention they have, the more power they have, which is why the new gods have the strength. They have most of the focus. The old gods, their memories are faded. They are in the background. They are floating in the corners of society's perception. So they can exist, but they don't have a lot of strength. Now, back into modern times, we of course have the scene we've sort of waited two weeks to see, which is the big conversation encounter between Shadow and Laura. And I love the way the two of them are dealing with it. Laura is still trying to be her cheeky, objective, playful self. And I love that Shadow is not, with everything that he has seen, he is really starting to deal with, okay, let's just deal with what's in front of us. First, the throwing of the pillow was awesome. I mean, it's like, okay, the first line, hey baby, what the fuck you doing here? Okay, that was perfect. Throwing the pillow. And then as she's still trying to like, well, let's sit and talk, and we're puppies, like, no, I think we've got some stuff we've got to hash out. I appreciate the fact that he was very direct. I hate it when we have people that are constantly in that surprise state. And he's got enough of it that he deals with. And I think the fact that he's dealing with this reality in front of him makes the disbelief of what he deals with later on make a lot more sense. Yeah, he is stepping into the world, but he hasn't fully embraced or realized what's going on here. So, but I do appreciate that he was very straightforward with trying to deal with what had happened and the back and forth. It wasn't just sort of falling into her pocket. She is still just treating him like a puppy, like he's just a faithful creature that will just wants to be by her side. And here, with all their discussion, really sets himself up as, no, I'm not that person. I'm not just going to roll over for you. I thought that was, to me, the best move for Shadow, because they're no matter what, they're not going to have any long-term going on right there. She is falling apart, as Sweeney tells her later on. So whatever time they have isn't going to be that long. Now, I do appreciate the fact that she sees that she's there to protect him. She certainly has done that. But her all subtleness of like even dipping in the water, it's like, I want to be warm in case you want to kiss me. It's like, you know, that's really the last thing we want to deal with at this moment right now. So I mean, I love the fact that Shadow did not just fall into the, oh, you're here, let's do it. He's really trying to trying to deal with the reality of what's going on, and he is not a neophyte anymore. Now, the subsequent scene between Laura and Sweeney, I thought was just beautifully done. However, the gentleness that Laura is trying to demonstrate in dealing with her puppy, with her glowing man Shadow, certainly none of that is reserved for Sweeney. And that makes sense because he kind of comes in like a douche demanding his coin. I love how he's just referring her instantly as like, oh, you're the dead wife. The back and forth with them was perfect. And how she kicks the crap out of him. I mean, in our first scene when he fights Shadow, he's the big, brawly, bouncer fighter. But since he has lost his coin, he has just had his ass handed to him, and it is no difference right here. It does give, I think, an interesting dynamic between the two of them. I'm really curious to see how their relationship might actually develop going forward, because there's so much hate, it almost might turn into something beautiful. I love that she's also aware that the coin is what's powering her. We haven't really gotten any indication of that before, but here we could see it even in that kiss where it sort of jumped where she was talking in with Shadow. That's the connection between Shadow. It was his gift to bring her back. But anyway, I love the scene, the back and forth. I love the trading of information. And even at the end, when they start to fight and the cops come in, and he's like, oh no, she's fine. You're an asshole dead wife. That's going to be like his mantra whenever he runs into her. You're an asshole dead wife. It's perfect. It's beautiful. I love the two of them together. And I thought that was just there's such great dynamics within that scene between the two of them and, of course, progressively moving the story forward. Alright, enough of that. Let's start talking about the gods. Again, return of Gillian Anderson as Media this episode. Beautiful. I loved her sort of stalking technology boy and doing to him what he did to Shadow with the same kind of creepy technological scorpion thing that jumps on the head. And of course, the limousine right there. Beautiful shot in the parking lot, by the way. Again, as the lights all went out and you just had the red light around the limousine. And that soft, purring sound of the aliens from the old War of the Worlds movie was just, oh, beautiful. Really set the scene nicely. And I thought it was appropriate, again, using that War of the Worlds. As media hits on later on, she was sort of born with the radio broadcast of the War of the Worlds, as she sort of says. That was the power. And it makes sense because, again, we have attention and focus is what brings gods to life. In 1938, we had the War of the Worlds radio broadcast, which, according to legend, because I wasn't there, I can just hear the stories like everybody else, really scared the crap out of a bunch of people. Really a bunch of people that didn't hear the first few minutes of the program that heard that this was just a radio show, but tuned in late. I think there was a game going on that night, so a bunch of people turned in late to the radio broadcast, and that's what sort of built on this frenzy, the fact that this imagined idea, and this is before World War II, so this was really, we had silent movies and we've had media coming up, but this was the first real time that you really get the population energized and fearful and grabbed onto the radio. What is going on? Through that immense power that so many people focusing their attention, thus we have media born. So I thought it was very cool. She refers back to that in the interrogation scene, but just having that sound in the background I thought was a really nice touch to keep that going. But media, of course, dealing with Technology Boy, he's got some branding issues. A lot of the lingo that we have going on, I love, is almost a change from old discussions to new terms. It's just putting them in the new language. As we get later on, we're talking about, oh, is it a truce? Oh no, it's a merger, it's a partnership. It's like we want to be incorporated and branded, and everything is all about the new marketing and the new technology. So I love she even starting dealing with Technology Boy right here. Hey, you've got a branding issue. This is your issue in dealing with the world. But basically her warning to Technology Boy is, we need to stop Wednesday. Your assault on Shadow is only going to inflame him, is only going to energize him to fight more. Why? Because she is putting focus. He himself, as a god, is putting focus, is putting energy, thought into Wednesday. By doing that, you are going to add power. Yes, it's generally in the men, but I think that if you have gods warring at each other in that point, that's also going to start to stoke a fire underneath it. So that's what media there is trying to do. Get Technology Boy to cut this problem before he inflames and makes it bigger. Now the interrogation bit I thought was really nicely done. I love the idea that Shadow is being an appropriate ex-con and just asking for lawyer no matter what. I love the idea that Wednesday starts out being a madman and then makes the deal with the detective and then does start telling the truth, knowing of course the truth is going to sound just as crazy as any other story that he can come up with. And it was kind of nice as it sort of gets us as an audience sort of a quick catch up and going, all right, so this is what's going on and this is what's going on. Okay, so I thought that was sort of a fun bit. I liked the female cop. I love that she came in and was talking with Shadow about, hey, there is something weird going on here. You need to talk to me. I'm less concerned that you have broken parole than the fact that I am getting unused fax machines turning on, sending me faxes with coordinates, backstories, and satellite photos of your crime. Like I said, some very powerful people, some very scary people are after you. What's going on? I love that whole setup, which was why at the end there I was really bummed to see that she ended up getting killed. But all of this, of course, really, the whole episode could be set aside in a quick little bit to deal with Crispin Glover's emergence as Mr. World. That was beautiful, perfectly portrayed. Crispin Glover is a weird guy. Every role he's been is a weird guy. And this is the perfect weird guy role for him to play as Mr. World, the all-knowing, all-seeing, all-everything God. The one up on top I thought was just beautiful. Very well played. the whole scenes, the whole back and forth. We have Gillian Anderson again coming in now as Marilyn Monroe, and the way that she is talking, everything just like Marilyn, and her terminology and everything. It was just really such an incredibly well-crafted scene. And this is where we see the conflict really between Wednesday and Mr. World. See, what we have is, with the old gods were a vessel for our existential crisis. We take our worries and concerns, our crises, we imbue them into the gods, and we ask for them to sort them out and demonstrate them back towards us. For the new gods, they distract us from our existential crises. Which is why Wednesday says that he gave something back. The new gods don't. They just distract. They take up time. They let us remove so we don't have to think or any of that. We pay all of our attention into them so we don't have to focus with the troubles that we have dealing with inside. For Wednesday, for the old gods, they're saying, no, we were the vessel with which that you dealt with those problems and fears and concerns inside. And then through us, you were able to deal with them. You were able to get solutions. You were able to see how everything sort of played out. And I think this was that wonderful, encounter of these two philosophies coming at a head. Because as the world, as media, they're trying to woo Wednesday into things, they're doing it, why? With a big rocket. Why? Because focus determines power. They're going to put a giant satellite rocket named Odin, thought that was appropriate, up above North Korea. So now you have all of these North Koreans thinking about this giant instrument of death, lightning strikes down just like Odin, and that fear, that focus on that thing called Odin connects in with Wednesday because he's Odin, and that is what's going to imbue him in with power. That is why he's saying it's exile. You're basically going to be this thing up in space that people are going to fear because you have a name, because you have that focus in people's hearts. That is going to give him power. However, it's just this thing floating up out there as an existential crisis that is never dealt with, that is never focused with, which is why he is saying that's not a reality, that's an excuse, that's just fitting me in a little box up on top of the display case and looking at it like a pretty little collection of everything else. Wednesday doesn't want that. Wednesday wants to be integrative in with the world. It's give and take for him, not just distraction. So of course not everything there really wrapped up to maybe world's expectation. Well, certainly not Technology Boy's expectations. And he got sort of a little up for his troubles there. I thought that was beautifully done, knocking out his front teeth with a little kiss from Marilyn Monroe. But that last moment between Technology Boy and World, I thought, was very telling of characters and kind of that respect, how long people have been around. The idea that World wants to integrate Wednesday because, I love that, he's older than you will ever be. Beautiful. But he has wisdom, knowledge, experience. There is value within that. And I like the fact that World does appreciate that. He's not as neophyte and flippant, perhaps, as Technology Boy, which makes sense. But the idea that he is offering Wednesday a chance, I want to give him an opportunity to think about it, to come in, to integrate, to try and stave off a war, but also do it out of respect. I thought was beautifully done. And as scary as World could potentially be, it does, I think, give a heart and respect level back to him. Now, I have to say, for all-powerful gods, they definitely don't have any problem leaving a wake of destruction behind them. I thought maybe they were just going to freeze everyone and give a chance to sneak out, but no. Killed all of the cops, everybody, tore them all up, and then the tree thing. I just want to hit on real quick. I was really kind of curious about that because it seemed like this should be World and technology and media sort of cleaning up after themselves, dealing with this issues. As even Wednesday said, they're going to tell whatever story they want. So that seemed to be the we're out of here for Wednesday and Shadow. However, Wednesday does seem to have a bit of a, connection with nature. I mean, he's got his birds, of course, his eyes. He had the spider that uncuffed him. Also didn't uncuff Shadow, which I thought was rude. So when this sort of tree starts growing out of the wood, I was thinking that maybe is this some connection is this something that, that Wednesday is doing? But when it attacked Shadow, that didn't seem to make much sense. Now, while I was thinking of Wednesday and Odin and Norse mythology, that of course, tree-wise, you think of Yggdrasil, the world tree. So is that the connection in with Wednesday? But then, of course, I thought the world tree, so is this world himself cleaning up the mess and sort of absorbing the police station, what had happened there. So I'm not entirely sure. I got a couple of ideas here, but personally the idea of Yggdrasil, the world's tree, growing up and covering up world's actions, I don't know, seemed appropriate. All right, just a couple of small things here. Laura's whole statement to Shadow about waiting a whole 13 months before sleeping with Robbie, I think that was a thing to be proud of. You did a great thing. Couple of things. One, I did find it interesting that it wasn't just the cat, that she had actually thought about sleeping with Robbie back and forth a few times before the cat really finally died. And second, her statement that happens with funerals, that next to cemeteries there's always a hotel. One, I've never heard that personally. Two, not you know, that holds no water considering the fact that Shadow actually got a move from Robbie's wife, got moved on by Aubrey's wife, and he was able to step away because, I don't know, having sex on your dead wife's grave just seems somewhat inappropriate. Wednesday's Ravens coming in and knocking on the door to let him know that weird stuff was happening downstairs with Shadow, I thought was hilarious. But as the bird landed and came across the floor, I got, for a moment, looked like a creepy spider thing. I don't know if that was intentional or not, probably was, because it looked creepy. Oh, and World walking in like Michael Jackson and Billie Jean. Oh man, that was perfect. All right, so I think that's going to wrap things up for this week. So if you would like, if you enjoyed this, please, I always appreciate you hitting that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, you can throw those down in the section below. There's also a share button if you want to go ahead and share this with your friends, which you know I, of course, would appreciate too. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Darren Jakes. Just the other day, I did a great commentary for some Game of Thrones episodes with Mark over at Enchantment of Eternity. We watched Battle of the Bastards. We did a live commentary for that. Had a really, really good time. In fact, we continued it on and did Lion in the Rose also. So we did Season 6, Episode 9, and then Season 4, Episode 2, sort of back to back. So if you want, you can go ahead, check that out, link it up with the episodes yourself, and enjoy our commentary and rambling over that. And I will go ahead and throw a link up to that right up over here. Now, I'm also doing a review for the preview for Season 7 of Game of Thrones, and I'll throw that up right here. If you're not a subscriber and you want to be sure that you don't miss anything, you can go ahead and subscribe by hitting this button here, and I think that will be it. So, I am D, and I am out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.